National Catholic Register. This is Register Radio, bringing light and clarity to the news and topics that affect your life.
Lent is almost here. How are you preparing for this holy season? Thinking of giving something up? Take a couple tips from Mother Angelica. She said, whatever you do this Lent, whatever suffering you endure, do it for Jesus and do it cheerfully. Today we prepare for the Lenten season with Franciscan Missionary of the Eternal Word, Father Joseph Mary. Then we turn to the news. Last fall, St. Mary's College in Notre Dame, Indiana, historically a school for undergraduate women, had decided to accept men who identified as women. The school reversed course after blowback, but trust has been broken. We hear about those concerns at St. Mary's from Jonathan Liedl, our senior editor at the Register. I'm Jeanette DeMello, Executive Director of the National Catholic Register and Catholic News Agency. I'm your host here on Register Radio. I'm joined by Matthew Bunson, my co-host, who is EWTN News' Vice President and Editorial Director. Hi, Matthew.
Hello, great to be with you.
You too. It's good to be thinking about Lent, preparing for it. I'm in Louisiana, and we have Mardi Gras this weekend, and lots of focus elsewhere. But I think it's always important to be prepared for such a holy season.
And I'll state the obvious, too, that, it just feels like we celebrated Christmas.
Exactly. It's very early this year, and I'm still putting away Christmas stuff. So I feel you. Today we have Father Joseph Mary Wolf, who's the chaplain of EWTN. He is one of the founding members of the men's community founded by Mother Angelica, the Franciscan Missionaries of the Eternal Word. And we're so grateful to have him with us today. Father Joseph Mary, thanks for taking the time to be with us.
And good to be with you, Jeanette.
So for Christians, Lent is, of course, this 40-day period leading up to Easter. As Catholics, we're taught it's a time of prayer, fasting, and almsgiving or charity. But it's easy to recite those basic definitions of what Lent is and then to give up chocolate or coffee or whatever it is. It's not easy for me to give up coffee, but but really, I want to kind of get to the heart of it. Why Lent? Why do we actually do this? What is the purpose, the true purpose?
Right, so the whole goal is, deeper union with God. And so the church, thankfully, as a mother, knows that we need to refocus our attention every year. Mm-hmm. And so we as a church go on retreat together. And it's always easier, isn't it, for us to refocus the lens of our lives with others and to be together in these practices of wanting to deepen our union with God and to remove any obstacles that stand in the way. And that's why we always begin on Ash Wednesday, reminding ourselves, being reminded of our mortality, but also the need for prayer, for charity, and for some sacrifice in our lives.
Absolutely. You mentioned Ash Wednesday, and that is coming so quickly. We go and we get ashes on our forehead. From dust you came, from dust you will return. And as I prepared for this show, I watched a few of Mother Angelica's Mother Angelica Live Classic, and some of her reflections on Ash Wednesday and on Lent. And she had this one quip, as she's so witty, and she said, the days pass quickly, don't you think? One day it won't be ashes on our head, it'll be ashes in the box.
That's right. That's right. She's always getting down to the nitty-gritty of life, and she's very practical too. And so for Mother, it was primarily, I think, interior mortifications, because I think she experienced in religious life that those who were especially ascetical could often be more of a penance to others than they were suffering themselves, right? Mm-hmm. And so we do need to have that element of some sacrifice in our life. But for Mother, it was more of this interior mortification. So, for example, she would say, maybe there's someone you'd like to, as she would put it, slip on a banana peel, because you have something, in the past about them. And instead of giving in to feelings of anger, resentment, and having a 3-act play in your head about what happened and how you were hurt and offended, You're going to put all that aside. You're going to pray for that person. You're going to practice charity toward that person. Somebody
Absolutely.
insults you, you're going to respond charitably rather than with an insult in return. And so it's like growing in virtue, putting to death that old man in ourselves that is a vice, is filled with vice, and putting on instead a life of virtue.
And that's right. She seemed to be saying you don't have to look very far to find penance, that
Mm-hmm.
penance is the opportunity for penance is all around us in our lives from, the moment your alarm clock goes off in the morning. And she talks about how do you ever wish the person who invented this just just didn't invent the thing? You just want to throw it away. And she looked, she's kind of pointing to every opportunity that we have in our day to turn an irritation into an offering to Jesus. And as I said in the introduction, she made that point. We can give things up. We can give them up for the wrong motivation, the wrong reason. And she said what we need to do is really make sure the reason is Jesus, is to grow closer to him.
And we can transform actually the sacrifices and sufferings of our life into an act of love. That's really what the children of Fatima were taught I offer this to you, Lord Jesus, for love of you and for the conversion of sinners. And so my question would be for all of us as we're entering into Lent, what sacrifice related to your vocation as wife, mother, father, husband, priest, religious, is the most painful to you?
Mm-hmm.
What's the most irksome to you as an element of living out your vocation? And every time you feel the pinch of that, offer it with love. Love for Jesus, who suffered for love of you. Love for souls, for the conversion of sinners. Make an offering of that with love. Mother said that often the Lord gave her penance. And I remember one time she began Lent and she broke her wrist. And that was like one of the most painful things that she had ever suffered. She had these rods coming out of her wrist to hold everything together. But she said, I know the Lord's up to something. He's going to do something big for the network. So she could offer that for souls. She could offer that for love of Jesus, who suffered for love of her.
Yeah, Father, there was also with Mother this understanding of the human person, the personality of people, our weaknesses, our failings. I love the idea of giving up temper rather than giving up candy and giving up
Mm-hmm.
gossip. I mean, she seemed to understand us remarkably well.
She really did. She really understood it because she had gone through so much. And I think that's what made her such a powerful communicator. Father Benedict Rochelle said she was the most articulate and effective communicator he'd ever met. And that's quite a compliment from him. And it was because she had endured and suffered so much herself in so many ways, with the divorce of her parents, with growing up in poverty, with the physical pains that she had, that she said this kept her dependent on God, these different sorts of sufferings. And she could speak with compassion to others in their own struggles, right? To just persevere and to do it cheerfully, as Mother would say. Let's offer it cheerfully.
Absolutely. So every Lent, our Holy Father, Pope Francis, and all of our popes have offered a Lenten reflection, a theme that comes out before Lent. This year, Pope Francis offered the Lenten 2024 reflection, and Catholic News Agency covered that. They had a story called "Lent is a Season of Conversion, a Time of Freedom." And this Lenten reflection is a reflection of the book of Exodus, and it's about through the desert, God leads us to freedom. It's a time for us the Pope reflects on it as being a time to pause, right? To pause in our very, very busy lives for prayer, for assistance. This is the charity to our brothers and sisters in need. And he really asks us to reflect on where are those areas of our lives where we fall into slavery? Slavery of sinfulness, of bad habits, of distraction. Particularly, he talks about just being distracted and unaware of the people around us. So I want to call our attention to, as you said in the beginning, we do this together as a community with the whole church. And so it's good to reflect on what the Holy Father has asked us to reflect upon.
Yeah, when you think about him speaking about Exodus, I would also like to suggest another penitential practice of pilgrimage during this year and during this season of Lent. It's the time of the Eucharistic revival, and a pilgrimage was a traditional way also to return to the Lord, to go to a holy place, and there's always graces that are received. And so you think of the Via, right? The way of St. James in Europe. And for centuries, people would walk days, weeks, or even months to St. James of Compostela. And so maybe this year, especially for those who may be in the Alabama area or even want to travel farther, come to the Shrine of the Blessed Sacrament. Come during the season of Lent. We're actually on March 9th having a wonderful event on the Shroud of Turin with talks and a healing service, and you can find things about that on the Shrine website. And a pilgrimage, again, it's a way in which you're putting away the old man and putting on the new man made in the image of Christ.
Absolutely. And Father Joseph, you have also given some Lenten reflections that we can watch at EWTN throughout Lent. There's an ebook, and right now we're talking in the weekend before Lent, but there's going to be plenty this week as Ash Wednesday approaches at EWTN.com and at ncregister.com that can help us to begin to prepare, to find opportunities to spend some thoughtfulness and prayerfulness on our Lord and how our hearts can be more united with him. And it has to be intentional. And I'm looking at EWTN.com right now, and I see your face there. There's already an ad that can help people get attached and connected to these Lenten observances. Do you have any final thoughts for us as we begin this journey?
Well, it's all depending on God, right? And he is the primary one who is leading us to union with himself. So we're seeking the Lord's grace, and it is a graced time, this season of Lent, and to take advantage of it. And so to take advantage of those traditional practices of prayer, some sacrifice, charity toward others, and pilgrimage. These can be wonderful ways that will enrich our life with the Lord as he leads us closer to himself.
Well, thank you so much, Father Joseph Mary. We always appreciate your wisdom and also sharing those reflections and memories of Mother Angelica.
Always good to be with you, Jeanette.
When we come back, we'll talk about the controversy surrounding a proposal to accept students who identify as transgender at St. Mary's College in Indiana. Register's senior editor Jonathan Liedl brings us the news and analysis. This is Register Radio on EWTN, and we ask you to stay tuned for more.
Archbishop Cordileone talks about the National Catholic Register.
The register's content is so critically important in the society we're living in now. There's an absence of the practice of religion in public life. So all the more important is it for people to be reading the register so that they can acquire more understanding of our Catholic faith. I've appreciated the catechetical benefits of the content of the register. It presents very clear Catholic teaching in a way that is easily digestible.
To get half off your subscription, order online at ncregister.com/radio or call 800-421-3230 and mention code radio. That's ncregister.com/radio or call 800-421-3230 and mention code radio. Call or click today to save 50%. The National Catholic Register. Read faithfully.
Let's return to Register Radio on EWTN.
Welcome back. I'm Jeanette DeMello, Executive Director of the National Catholic Register and Catholic News Agency, and I'm here together with EWTN News Vice President and Editorial Director Matthew Bunson. So we're talking about St. Mary's College in Indiana. This is the all-girls school known for its proximity to University of Notre Dame. And it's been in the spotlight for its attempt to quietly allow biological men who identify as women, so-called transgender students, into the school. And this obviously upset some students and faculty and alumni, and they expressed their disapproval in various ways, and this policy was reversed. But really, many questions still remain about the Catholic identity of St. Mary's and its future. Jonathan Liedl, who is an alumnus of University of Notre Dame, reported on this controversy, and he joins us now. Hi, Jonathan.
Good to be with you both.
So, the facts first. I gave a high-level overview of what happened, but can you give us more detail about how this policy came to be and then how it was reversed?
Yeah, absolutely. So kind of from the news angle, things broke back in November when it became public that, as you said, St. Mary's College had actually changed its non-discrimination policy to allow for the admission, it said, of women and those who identify and consistently live as women, which is, as you mentioned, is kind of code word for biological men, who identify as women. But part of what was so controversial about this wasn't just the change in policy, which of course is controversial in its own right, but it's the fact that it was actually made by the Board of Trustees over the summer, back in June. They had decided to make this change. It hadn't been publicized. And in fact, it only came to light because a student worker in admissions, Macy Gunnell, who we spoke to, she went to the press with it. First to Notre Dame's and St. Mary's campus newspaper, The Observer, and then it was covered not only in Catholic media, but conservative media across the country. So really, I think from many of the alumni and the students and parents and faculty who are concerned, a big part of it isn't just, it's the change in policy, but it's the fact that the administration tried to sneak it through. And so there was a significant outcry after that November 21st policy came to light, and including from the Bishop Kevin Rhodes of the Diocese of Fort Wayne and South Bend. He wrote on November 27th a pretty critical letter. He said, the problem here at St. Mary's College isn't that they're trying to be hospitable to people. That's good. We want people to be hospitable. The problem is that they have a definition of women, right, that isn't Catholic. It isn't consistent with being a Catholic college. He actually met also with the President Katie Conboy, multiple times. And on December 21st, so a month after this policy came to light, it was actually rescinded. It was actually kind of put on hold or done away with by St. Mary's College. But as people we spoke to said, trust has been broken, right? This was something that they tried to sneak through, and so a lot of people I spoke with said, well, we think it might happen again. So, but one interesting thing is that it has increased, I think, organization and vigilance of concern at St. Mary's. So that's something significant to watch going on. But yeah, I
want to go back to the point. The policy was decided during the summer by the Board of Trustees, or at least they approved it during the summer. It didn't originate from someone requesting, a biological man, a so-called transgender student wanting to get into the school?
That's never been confirmed. I haven't heard that. I mean, I think it might simply be the fact that St. Mary's College, like so many other mid-sized Catholic liberal arts colleges right now, is struggling for admissions, right? It's struggling financially. It's struggling in a lot of ways. Its admissions is down to 1,400, right? The current student body, undergrad pop, is 1,400, which is the lowest it's been. And so, President Conboy came in 2020 and with a mission of, hey, how do we become relevant, right? How do we fit in? She issued a strategic plan in 2021 called Revere and Revise, right? That was this blueprint for how St. Mary's College is going to transform and how it's going to be relevant. So I think possibly that could have been an event that triggered it or something like that. But I think this is actually just consistent with where Catholic women's colleges are going. In the US.
And that's the troubling part. We haven't heard that this was triggered by a student or somebody requesting entrance, but it seems to be triggered by a program, an agenda. And you wrote in your story that Convoy's, the president's vision is, that St. Mary's should be invigorated by difference. That's a quote, invigorated by difference, And that's, while, Bishop Rhodes is absolutely right, we should be pastoral, and we should welcome all to the church, to Jesus, right? But it doesn't mean that we accept all without discretion, and so this is a troubling agenda, and it's good to hear of the school. People at the school, people connected to the school, alumni, pushing back. I want to refer to your story. It's titled "Trust Has Been Broken After Trans Policy Fallout Controversy Still Simmers at St. Mary's College." So you can find that at ncregister.com, written by Jonathan Liedl, who we're talking to. And I do want to raise the question that Catholic, you mentioned Catholic colleges, and particularly women's colleges, are sort of going this direction. What do we know about other policies at other schools?
Yeah, so we know that there are 9 total Catholic women's colleges in the U.S. One of them, though, is just for women's religious, right? So we'll kind of leave that one aside a bit. So if you look at the remaining 8, already 5 of them on their websites, easily identifiable, say that they admit basically biological men who identify as women. They admit women and those who, and transgender women, right, or those who identify as women. So that's almost all, right, of the Catholic women's colleges in the U.S. 2 of them are in Milwaukee. One of them is in Los Angeles. One of them is in St. Paul, Minnesota. The other is in St. Cloud, Minnesota. And the remaining, so we said 8. There are 5 on the websites. There are 2 more other than St. Mary's, and according to some reports, they admit transgender women in other people, men who identify as women, in other capacities in their programs as well. So it's across the board, right? I mean, and the wild thing is, right? I mean, St. Mary's colleges, they're all this furor has been caused, right? But President Convoy, when there was first all this criticism in November, she said, look, we're just doing what our peer institutions are doing. And she's right about that, right? The fact that this has happened at these other places without outcry. I think, we're obviously doing, the Register is doing some reporting into this to find out the story of those schools and how it came to be and how the local bishop, why the local bishops didn't respond in the way that Bishop Rhodes did. But keep in mind, Bishop Rhodes only responded to this, only was able to weigh in and likely stop this policy from going through because it was leaked to him, or it was leaked by a student worker in the admissions office. So it's something that, is clearly, there were rumors, allegations that we can confirm that some of these changes are tied to receiving federal money or being able to participate in federal programs like the Common Application. We couldn't confirm those, but there is a sense, among people in higher ed, especially if they don't necessarily have a deep grounding in the Catholic faith, that we need to make this change, right, to fit in. And I think on this issue, on St. Mary's College, people told me this isn't just undermining St. Mary's Catholic identity; it's undermining St. Mary's identity as a women's college.
Right.
Right. I mean, that's so that, and also St. Mary's as a college, is a collegial place to have a decision like this made kind of in the shadows. But there has been significant backlash against it, which I think is important to point out.
Yeah, and Jonathan, do we have any idea of the numbers involved at these other women's colleges? How many,
in terms of
how many actual trans students or applicants who identify as women A, were admitted, and B, are currently there.
Yeah, we don't. We're looking into that right now. So the register is doing. The St. Mary's story has kind of triggered that deeper dive into asking those questions and answering them. So we don't know for sure. We do know at St. Mary's College that if there had not been a change in policy, if they hadn't gone back on the change in policy in December, that the fall 2024 class for the St. Mary's College Bells could have included biological men identifying as women. So it could have been there at these other schools. Their policies have been in place longer, so it very well may be a reality. We'll find out for sure. But I mean, one thing to highlight at St. Mary's College, you've mentioned it, but people did tell me the silver lining of this is that it's almost like a sleeping giant was awoken, right, by this policy attempting to be crammed through. And you have this network of alumni, of parents, some faculty, some students who, someone described it to me as kind of like a frog slowly cooking in a pot, right? Like there have been different changes at St. Mary's College under President Convoy and even before. In the launch of an LGBTQ plus center a couple of years ago, bringing in Father Daniel Horan, a very controversial Franciscan priest, as the director of the Spirituality Center. But this policy, this trans policy, was kind of like, instead of the frogs simmering, suddenly the frogs like dumped into boiling water. And people kind of woke up and people said, whoa, what's happening at St. Mary's College? If it can do this, if it can make this change, how is it really being guided by its Catholic identity? But we're seeing a response to it. And so the hope is that this might be an opportunity for some good changes to actually happen at St. Mary's College.
Yeah, Jonathan, thank you for your reporting and also for your analysis here. And we'll look forward to that other reporting from you and Matthew McDonald. And I invite our listeners to go to ncregister.com, where you can find more news, analysis, and commentary. Thank you for joining us here on Register Radio on EWTN, together with Matthew Bunson and my producer, Michael McCall. I am Jeanette DeMello, and until next week, I pray that God bless you.